Hi, I'm Jelle.
And I'm Feli.
And I would like to tell something about cognitive services. Do you have any idea where I'm going?
I think it's something with services and something with cognitive. So Microsoft services.
So it's a Microsoft service. Basically, it comes back to what we've been telling many times over now. If you take small steps, then implementing AI is not all that hard. And the cognitive services that Microsoft provides, they are one of those really small steps that you as a business or you as a developer can take to make use of some AI and actually get to work with some AI without actually doing all the data stuff. You don't have to bring your own data, as it were. You can just immediately get started with a pre-made model. It's basically that simple. You just you look up, does Microsoft have something for this? You create something in Microsoft's cloud in Azure, and then you can make use of that resource. So
Sounds nice.
it sounds nice, right? It has some major advantages because it's really cheap and really easy compared to some other forms of AI. Of course, you have some downsides where you don't have that much control over the data, and you can't really change the model that easily. But on the other hand, you can make use of the model in any way that you want, which I think can provide some really easy beginners introductionary steps to a developer's toolbox, as to say. So cognitive services, so it has to do with cognition, it has to do with artificial cognition in this instance, but so what do you think are the major cognitive abilities that a human has?
So most of the time we're talking about things like vision, maybe
Correct.
hearing, reasoning, understanding. Stuff like language is also one that's often...
Yeah, so I mean, as a human, you have stuff sticking out of your face and you have something in your head. So you have your brains, you have your ears. Well, my eyes aren't sticking out that much, but I have glasses, so I was that. So the vision, the language, the decision making. That's categories where you can find some cognitive services. And of course, Microsoft has added that one big other category of human cognition, Bing. We all know it. That's another category, searching stuff up, AI. So basically, what I would like to do now is go into the Azure cloud, create one or two of those APIs, and show you how easy that is, and then show you a sample application where those APIs are being used.
Sounds good.
Good. In that case, let's first quickly look at the documentation, which as a proper developer I always do before starting to use something. You see that Microsoft has provided a lot of different APIs, and what I want to build today is a website that allows me to put in some text, and basically it will translate it. So as you may have heard, I am not a native English speaker. You might have heard a few Dutch accents here and there. So I would like to translate my English to Dutch, for instance. And what I also like to do is to be able to pick up on the finer aspects of the text, because for instance, if I tell Feli now that she has a beautiful laptop, then she knows that that's a compliment. She knows that that was a positive thing to say. She might find it a bit weird, but it's positive. AI is also able to see whether something is a positive statement, a negative statement. What I'm going to do, you can already see that I've read the documentation of two of these before. The text analytics API, which allow me to get an AI model that analyzes text, and a translator API. So both of these are examples of the language category. There's of course in-depth documentation, which I would say is really extensive. So if you get stuck, here's the documentation, just read it. You'll be able to make use of these APIs quite quickly, as long as you can make use of the Azure. So here in Azure, you can see that for the quick viewers, you can see that I've already prepared my pie in advance. So there's a text analytics service there and a translation service. Because I think it's going to be a lot of hassle swapping around keys. So I'll show you how to make an API. I'm going to use the ones that I've created earlier. But it's really, really easy. So I create a resource and I'm going to say, all right, let's make a text analytics. I should learn to type. There we go. All right, so it displays a quick, nice overview. This is what it is. This is what it can do. I have a create button, so that's really easy. I'll have to enter a name. Feli, if you would care to provide a name for my beautiful text analytics service.
Betatalks text analytics.
Well, you see that we have quite similar naming schemes, because that's exactly the name that's already in there. So I'm going to name it.
You can name it Hank.
All right, so it's now called Hank. Hank, the text analyzer. All right, so I have my subscription. I'm going to put this in Western Europe. I could get a free one, but I already have one, so I'm going to use the standard tier. I'm not expecting to use this API all that much. If I expect a lot of traffic, I can upgrade my tier, which is the usual with Azure, and I'll have to create or use a resource group. I'm gonna choose my beautiful prepared Betatalks group, and now I click create. The subdomain Hank is already used, Feli. It's good that it tells me this, so I'm gonna just make sure that it's something that is not in use. At least I really hope not. All right, so I'm now creating this service. It tells me that deployment is in progress, and this will take a few minutes. Well, maybe a few seconds. The cloud is really hungry today. So let's go to that resource. It tells me here that I can check Betatalks Hank immediately. So it tells me a quick start. I have some keys here and an endpoint. So basically for the text analytics service, that's all I need. I need a key to be able to tell the endpoint that, hey, it's me. And I need an endpoint because for the text analytics service, every API is a unique endpoint. This would be different, for instance, with the translator API, where every call gets made to the same endpoint but with a different key. So you need to look up for each API how exactly it works. So now I have a working API. I could try it here as long as I have the keys. But I'm going to show you the app that that's still in the oven, but I'll now open the oven. You get to see it.
Your app.
Yes, it smells really nice. Here's my text analysis app. It's a Blazor app, and it will allow a user to input some text. So let's just quickly run it here. I'm going to give you the choice between Martin Luther King or Donald Trump.
I think Martin Luther King is.
All right, so I'll search for Martin Luther King speech. That was quick. All right, so I'm hoping that, yes, here we have this is the Dutch Wikipedia for anyone wondering what Dutch looks like written down. We have the English text, and I can put that in my new beautiful app. This is my input. Basically, I am a user, I'm gonna input some text, and when I analyze, it's gonna make a few calls to my brand new API. Well, not the brand new API. It's gonna make a few calls to the...
Hank, but...
Yeah, not Hank will remain uncalled for today, unfortunately, but it's gonna make a few calls and it will analyze this text. So you can see that there's a few different features that this API allows. So for instance, you can see the language detection feature. Pretty sure that
might be English.
It might be English, yeah. So this is where we might even be quicker than the computer, but it will also immediately get out a sentiment and some key phrases, some entities which within the sentences, and it will recommend me some further reading. So that's nice, right? Because after this is all done, I'm gonna keep reading about this fascinating man. So if I hit the Analyze button, behind the scenes, it has made some calls. I will show in a bit what kind of calls were made. And we have the results.
The results are in.
The results are in. Well, it shows me even how confident it is, which is always nice. It's very confident that it's in English, which I would wager is...
We were as well.
Yeah,
it's
we were...
Pretty confident.
Yeah, so the confidence here is well established. But it can also pick up sentiment. You can see that Martin Luther King used very complex phrasing. The API it's a mixed text. It's pretty sure that it's a combination of positive and negative sentences, which I'm fairly sure in a message of having a dream that something will be good, but it's not very good right now. That makes sense to me. It also distilled some key phrases in this text. So, well, there's the dream, hooray. I think that's the most important one. We've got that. It has found some entities, which, for instance, it has learned that Georgia is in the text, and that's a location. So that's something that it immediately knows. It has identified that somewhere there's a mention of the word slaves, which is a type of person. Which is, I think, the most neutral way to phrase that. And it recommended some further reading. So here, the first one is that it links to Mississippi, which was mentioned. It links to the I Have a Dream speech itself, but on the English Wikipedia. And again, there's Georgia as a US state. So it even correctly directs me not to the country, but to the US state, which I think is...
Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I, as a developer or as a business, I could make use of this. And you can see how easy it was for me to create that API. Also, the code behind, it's not that difficult. Basically, if I stop running here and I show you the code. So I have a text analytics service that is basically a wrapper around my client. And the text analytics client is the actual client that makes the calls to the API, and that client is something that is actually provided by Microsoft. If I install the right package, it will give me access to that text client, and I can just make use of it. And basically the client, which here is identified by the client, needs an endpoint and a credentials. That's the same thing that we learned before. We need an endpoint and some credentials. And it allows me to call some methods on that client. So the detect language that we saw, the key phrases that is found, here it analyzes the sentiment. Basically every time I retrieve whatever the API gives to me, I put it in some kind of wrapper object so I can display it nicely in the app, but you can see that the classes that it exposes are really filled with a lot of information that you might be interested in. So confidence scores, but also the different sentences that it has. Even some warnings if the API thinks, well, I'm gonna say this, but please be aware that something may be wrong. It allows me to access that. So it's pretty extensive, and the same basically goes for the translation service. I didn't show it to you yet because I wanted to show my code, but the translation service works quite similarly. I've done a different implementation where I make a direct HTTP call, which is also a possibility. But as long as I basically select the target language, so what did I say? Dutch, right? So Dutch, Netherlands. And well, I don't even have to put in an input language because, I mean, we've just seen it will be able to determine the language quite clearly itself. So if I translate this, then we get, for most people...
Gibberish?
Yes, with a lot of sounds, but it is Dutch, I can assure you that. And it also has detected that this was actually in English. I can see a lot of use for translation service because not only is translating a feature that comes up a lot, but some of the APIs for instance, the text analytics client, they don't support all the languages. They support most languages, but so that's basically how this works. There's a lot of other possibilities where you can basically just create an API in the cloud and start using it immediately. It's really easy. There's a lot of potential ways to use all those apps.
Yeah, and it really is easy because even if you don't really know exactly the different algorithms that might have been used to come to these algorithms, you can still use them. You don't need to know what's behind them technically exactly to be able to use these. So it's a really good way to start.
Yeah, yes, that's basically it. So if you think, well, I have some need of AI, but I don't want to go through all the trouble of setting up all the steps necessary to create a machine learning application myself, there is a possibility. Of course, this is slightly less, customizable, of course, but documentation is there, so you can actually look at what it's supposed to do and also what it's actually doing, because also the model is freely available, so you can just see what kind of decisions the algorithms are making. Yeah, that's basically all I wanted to share with you today. Do you have any questions?
No, I think it's all very clear, and it helps that there's really good documentation. So I think it's really interesting to just dive in and figure out for yourself, just to make a little app and see everything you can do.
Yeah, I feel inclined to start making more now. So after this, that's what I'm going to do. But first, I would like to recommend a book, which is kind of appropriate and it's free. So that's the best kind of recommendation there is, at least for us Dutch people. It's Azure Cognitive Services by Ed Freitas. It's here on this beautiful e-reader. You can download this book for free, and it goes really in depth into all the different kind of cognitive services that are available in Azure and that are that you can utilize to just take that first and that second step in making your applications just that more intelligent.
Yeah, and I think it's also, if you start with this, then maybe you can get other people on board and you can kind of show people AI might not be that scary, and maybe after that, you can always kind of upgrade.
Well, I think that's basically the big finisher. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you again. Bye-bye.